Fantastic. I'm going to share the course outline. So, yeah, you got that okay? I'm going to minimize the view of people. So this is the course for 2025. We're very lucky to have Martina here. She's an outstanding scholar. She's a professor at UTS in Sydney and the director of their environmental centre there. So she's got 100 academic articles, book chapters and conference papers. She's very modest. She's actually got a best-selling and very well-reviewed book, yeah, and that's the Climate Resilient Organization. And she uses just about all of these research methodologies in her own work. So it's fantastic that she's teaching this course. My main claim to fame is I'm very good at teaching people how to do research, yeah, and my students have been very successful in their own rights, yeah, not joint papers with me, but sole authored papers. So a lot of you know how to do capital markets research, and that's great, right? But it's good to have a lot more tools in your tool belt, right? Because if you've only got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And you really can't build much of a house with just a hammer. Yeah? So we're going to go through all of the major research methodologies. So the approach is, what is the current, best practice? That is the state of the art. What are the editors looking for? And how do we know what the editors are looking for? Well, they get so frustrated that they often write, this is what we're looking for. So we keep track of all of these outpourings by editors saying, stop sending us papers that don't do this. And then the idea is, thirdly, to give you great examples. So some great articles that exhibit the state of the art, and then where to from here, what course, what books, what articles you could read. There's some good textbooks that you might want to take a look at. A lot of the times you can get these PDFs online for free. So the assessment is pretty gentle. During the week, we'll have, some hands-on examples. So we would like the people that are doing this for, the certificate for credit to have a go at doing this, and, it'll be group. And so what we'll do is we will, when we're doing the hands-on, we'll break up into groups, and the ones doing it for a certificate will be in groups 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, and the ones not doing it for credit, they can be in the other groups. So we'll figure that out. So that'll be 40%, and you'll learn that this week. The remaining 60% is just doing a research proposal. Yeah, and if since we cover all the research methodologies, right, it can be something that you're working on anyway for your PhD or thinking about working on. And the good thing about it is that you'll get comments from us, right? So I think it's useful in its own right. Yeah, and just because of the UTS deadlines for things, that has to be in by Wednesday, August 20th. Yeah. So that's, a bit over a month from now.
We might actually update that, Tom. I had a chat with UTS, and they need the grades a little bit sooner on this occasion, because they would like the results already published. They have gotten back to me, and the results publication date is on the 22nd. So I don't think they allow me to just submit within 2 days. So I would propose for the UTS. For the UTS people at least. The rest is fine, but for the UTS folks, we have to set this a couple of days earlier than that. Sorry to bring your assessment forward.
We'll say 18. But if you're not UTS and you need a bit of extra time, that'll be okay. Yeah, so we're not hard and fast on this. Okay, so intensive live Zoom. You also got, some instructions about what to do ahead of time. So in Europe, you've got to wake up at 5 and spend 2 hours doing the pre-reading. No, you don't have to do that. So you can do the pre-reading and watch the videos after if it doesn't fit into your time zone. Today, we're going to start with qualitative research, right? And I think you're going to find that qualitative research is a lot more demanding than you ever thought, right? And it takes a lot longer than capital market research, and is actually, a lot more demanding. And we'll go through that. So, you've got to have a research question. In qualitative research, is the one field where you don't necessarily have a hypothesis. You can be looking for deep underlying meaning on things. Theoretical perspective is very important. The capital markets people tend to think there's only one version of reality. It's hard and fast. It is or it isn't. But most of us know that everyone sees things very differently. And of course, if you ask the police if there's a crime, if they prefer to have one witness or 5, they would tell you we prefer to have one witness, because each of the 5 would have seen different things, and defense attorneys just highlight that inconsistencies and tear the prosecution's case to pieces. So the research questions, very important. You should tie your interview questions to them. You can't just be asking a bunch of questions and then think you can get a bunch of papers out of it. Some of the capital markets people say, well, they mightn't tell you the truth when you interview people. Well, like, surprise, surprise, there might be errors in the capital market data they're using. Okay. So to get around that, we use something known as triangulation. And so you triangulate between what people say in the interview, what you observe of them, and what documents there exist, either from the firm itself or from regulatory agencies or any inquiries. But you could also do other forms of triangulation. And one of the ones I like best, because everyone sees things differently, is if it's a financial disaster, say, it's one thing talking to the investors who lost their money, but you can also talk to the financial planners and the regulators, right? So there's triangulation on the participants, the actors. And then finally, you have researcher triangulation. When you type up the interviews, luckily on Zoom, you get a transcript anyway if you're doing the interview on Zoom. You would go through and do what they call coding and come up with themes, like initial themes. There might be 30 of them. And then you might have a second look and say, well, I can combine some of those and come up with intermediate themes. And you might have a dozen of those. And then you sit at the side and think for a few days and say, well, maybe I can combine some of those and come up with 3 or 4 final themes. So you can have a go at doing that, and we get Martina to have a go, and I have a go, your other researchers. And that's a really good way of, making sure you've come up with the right list. So all of this triangulation, the double, triple checking, really adds to the accuracy. And later on today, we'll do an example of triangulation. We've got like 100 responses from teachers about why they become teachers. So we'll have a bunch of different groups coming up with what the top reasons were for them to become a teacher. And you'll see across the groups, this triangulation really works because there'll be amazing similarity. And we've got some readings there. Systematic lit review is, again, this is all about replication, the reason you need to be systematic. So you've got to decide what it is you're doing a lit review on. So that's the research field. Then you've got to go to an established database like Scopus or Web of Science, right? And you put in some keywords related to that research area. And this is a good point to do some triangulation with the other researchers and or your supervisor, right? So you come up with what you think are, just the right keywords. So now you're going to get papers from many different fields, right? So everything in the Web of Science and or Scopus. So it's not just the papers you read as an undergrad or a master's, right, or come across by chance. This is, a systematic search. And what it means is, because you've done the triangulation, that anyone looking at that same research area, and triangulating will come up with pretty much the same keywords to use in that same database and come up with pretty much the same list of papers. So then you can do network analysis. So this is like a figure showing the connections between the articles where, the nodes are bigger if it's more highly cited. And you see how the different research groups cluster together. So in this research area, you might find there's 4 or 5 different research areas. So you can use Garfield, and he was the guy that come up with this stuff, right? And he also is to blame for coming up with impact factors, right? And it's been a curse of our life, right? That now we have to publish in journals with high impact factors. So he does a very nice picture. Bibliometrics gets better every month. So it not only comes up with a map of the network connections, but it puts in different colors what it thinks are the different research groups. So most people are now using bibliometrics. But the editors, want to make sure that you follow all those things I've talked about, that you really do a good job of data cleaning, because often citations are inaccurate in the list of reference, so you've got to check them. Often you might find, you've got your list of articles, but if you look at which articles they cite, you might find there's some very important articles that are cited, but not in your list. So you might want to include them. And quite a few readings there from Garfield. And this article here in 2020 is incredibly well cited by Martina, Marissimo, and Abbe. So that's a good one to look at. Then, so Martina will be doing that one. That's tomorrow. I will be at a graduation, my last student at the University of Queensland. I think it's taken him 10 years past time, but it's a great day. So I'll be there at UQ doing that. On Wednesday, I'll be back and we'll be doing survey research. And, again here, so for the first time, I'm really emphasizing you have to have a hypothesis. Okay, or hypotheses. And the questions are going to be tied to the hypotheses. So in the past, people just thought they could go out and do a survey, answer a bunch of questions, and then get a whole lot of answers that they can use for a bunch of papers. That's not what the editors are looking for now, right? It's got to be focused on a particular hypothesis or hypotheses. And, in carpentry, you measure twice and cut once. Well, in survey research, you measure 4 times and cut once. It's an 80-20 rule. So that's really important, right? And, you think, I know I can ask questions. Well, we're going to find out that's a lot harder. Just a simple question like, how comfortable was your bed last night? If you stay in a hotel, there can be lots and lots of things that you haven't thought of that you have to have in the responses. What scales on individual questions to use, but also what scales do you use for abstract concepts? How smart are you? Well, you can't just ask people how smart they are in that one question, right? So it turns out there's IQ scales, right? A series of questions which measure that concept, and emotional quotient, right? How socially aware you are, and things like risk aversion, confidence, lots of things, right? So use of scales for not only individual questions, but multiple questions that measure abstract concepts. Response bias is a big issue, right? If we were to send out a survey to the members of Knowledge Bridge, we'd only expect about 30% of the members of Knowledge Bridge to respond, That's if Knowledge Bridge sent it out. If Knowledge Bridge sent it out to the broader community, you'd only expect 10% to respond. So one of the questions is, how do you deal with that response bias? Luckily, there are methods. There's a guy called Heckman who has a means for dealing with sample selection, and he got a Nobel Prize for that. A big thing in survey research is that the editors are really looking for is dealing with common method variance. So that means the way that you do the survey itself could affect the results. I'll give you an example. If you give me an online survey to do, right, and you ask me, oh, Tom, DigiCores, can you please do the survey for me? Yeah, look, I really want to help you and I'll agree to do it, but, you know, I'm time poor. So I will go through and you see a question and there's like 5 responses. I won't read them all. I'll click the first one that seems reasonable. Yeah. So that's what I'll do in that case. If you get me on the telephone and you read out all 5 responses, I'm going to ask a few times, oh, what was that person's second one again? But then, you know, I'm going to sick of asking and you're going to get sick of me asking. So in the end, I'm just going to give you one of the ones towards the end that I can remember, the 4th or 5th one. So here, the way that you conduct a survey is actually having an effect on the responses you get. So the editors want to see that you're aware of that and that you change up. So for example, you switch the order of the responses and or switch the order of the questions. Yeah. So we'll talk a lot more about that. And you see there's quite a few examples of survey research here, as well as, the editors are crying out, you've got to take account of common method variance. Then we've got to do experimental research. And why that's important is in capital markets, one of the big issues is showing causation. Yeah. So you get an association, but the editors want to know that it's causal. And it used to be in capital markets, you could run a regression and tell a convincing story, but that doesn't work anymore. So as you're going to see from the econometrics, research methodology is getting harder and harder, right, to show causality. So one way you can show causality, in a very convincing way, is in the laboratory. Yeah. So we're going to talk about the treatment groups, the control groups, and how you get to form the control groups, what the exogenous treatment is. Yeah. And then there's issues that the editors are looking at. So the use of students, low stakes, they worry that low stakes involved might not be applicable to the real world. And then there's some very important biases, order effects, which we saw in the survey, the order of the responses. And you imagine you're doing a sleep study and someone does 2 hours sleep followed by 10 hours sleep. That might get a different result to if they did 10 hours followed by 2. And the anchoring bias is an incredibly powerful bias. In the US, for their retirement system, the default is to invest in a government bond portfolio, which only gets about 2 or 4% return. So just about everyone in America goes with the default. Yeah? In Australia, the default is actually investing in the market, which gets about an 8 to 10% return. And of course, that's extremely risky compared to the government bond. But just about everyone in Australia goes with the default, which is investing in the market. So even for something as important as your retirement income, this anchoring effect really does exist. So econometrics, there's lots of different approaches, maximum likelihood, Bayesian. You'll find out that I do really like those approaches. A lot to be learned from them both, but I prefer approaches like GMM and Bootstrap, where you don't have to make heroic assumptions about the distribution of the data that you're examining, right? In fact, you don't have to make any distributional assumptions at all. But in both of these, you can nest your estimation in such a way that you get the same estimates as you would in maximum likelihood and Bayesian. You'll just get different standard orders. So the causality thing, right? And we're going to go through what the editors are looking for. By this stage, we've already talked about sample selection bias and Heckman's correction. And we'll talk a little bit about how, you can get spurious correlation, right? There is an association between storks arriving and babies born, but that doesn't mean that the storks are actually delivering a baby, right? And we'll talk about how that spurious correlation came about. Yeah, and it's a very simple reason why it came about. Now I've got someone on chat. No, that's okay.
It was just me. We had a few people
Yeah.
joining late. So once they were admitted from the waiting room, I just reminded them what we were actually doing at the minute, which was going through the outline.
Fantastic.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's saved in the folder as well, together with all the assessment information. So in case you joined late and you feel like you've missed out on anything, no problem at all. That's all saved on the Dropbox folder as well. So under the information for today.
And I just want to congratulate you, Martina. You got 46 people signed up for your course. So that's
So do you. So do you, Tom.
I hope I don't bore them to death and you have that same number tomorrow. So let's go. Okay, so now we're going to start on qualitative research, and I'm going to share the screen again. And remember, I've got an exercise for you, which will be an exercise in triangulation. Okay. So, why would you do qualitative research, right? And I'm going to argue that even, the people in finance should think about doing qualitative research, right? And I'm going to assure you that it's far more rigorous and demanding than, the capital market research. And we're going to give you some examples that are currently being carried out. But encourage you to catch the wave. And I'm going to give you, I wrote a book on this qualitative research in finance, and John Graham and Campbell Harvey, who were past editors of Journal of Finance and presidents of the American Finance Association, wrote the foreword saying that, yeah, this is the way. If you want to find investor expectations, the only way to do it is by qualitative research. And so they indeed are doing qualitative research themselves. So at the very highest level, the qualitative research is being accepted even in the field like finance. So, I love papers that are start off being motivated by, practice, by, the speaker had a conversation with the CEO or a market maker or a fund manager, and that inspired their paper. The only thing is, I sometimes think, well, if only they'd talked to a few of them, and we could have got, even deeper insights. And the scientists, right, they would love to do their research more directly, right? Is there, physicists would love to ask the atoms, molecules, and compounds, is there a Higgs boson hidden down there, or is there, something beyond that, So they must think we're crazy, right? Because we can do that. We can ask the market participants, the CFO, market maker, fund manager, and it's silly not to do that, right? And we can explore the complex reasoning behind what they do. Look, and the people worry they mightn't tell you the truth, but that's why we do all this triangulation, not just what they say, but how they act, what the documents tell you, what the investors think, what the regulators think, what the financial advisors think. 1956, there was a great study on how firms decide what dividend to pay, and that was by a guy called Littner. And yes, he's the same famous Littner from the Sharpe-Littner capital asset pricing model. He would have got the Nobel Prize for developing the CAPM, but he was deceased at that time, and they don't give it to people who are deceased. Otherwise, a guy called Archimedes would get it every year. So very formal, rigorous, and demanding. And so I'm not going to say who, but there's finance academics trying to predict returns, and they literally try thousands, hundreds of thousands of variables, but discard the ones that don't work and just report the few that did work, right? So they don't disclose that, but in qualitative research, you've got to show all the things you tried but discarded. So they would be the finance academic would be very, very much embarrassed. Okay, I haven't really defined what qualitative research is. It is interviews, it is focus groups or observations. I know you go to a coffee shop and just observe behavior, but it does not include surveys or questionnaires. They are regarded as quantitative research, right? So qualitative research is interviews, one-on-one, focus group, one with many, and observation, yeah, and doesn't include surveys, questionnaires. So this is the data triangulation, which is key, right, to ensuring that you're getting the correct picture, right? So the idea is, you talk to someone, and good idea always to record what is being said. So that way, when you're making notes, it's really just about observations, yeah? Do they look you in the eye when they say certain things? What's their body language? If they're talking about how well the firm looks after women, but you see them acting disrespectfully to women as you come into the interview or leave, yeah. And then the other thing is documents. So what documents does the firm have? Does it back up what the person's saying? Are the regulators got some documents on this firm? Has there been any inquiries by the government into this firm? And then your own memos. And we'll talk about the memos you might keep, right? And these will be a source for how you come up. All of these things will be a source for how you come up with your themes. So that's data triangulation. So interviews, observations, documentation. You also have participant triangulation. And this is really important, right? Because, the investor blames the financial planner and the regulator. So if you only talk to investors, you're only getting one side of the story. So, if you're being offered 10% returns, yeah, and the government bond rate is 4%, well, you should know as an investor that is risky, right? The riskless rate, the government bond rate, is 4%. So you're getting 10%. You're taking on risk, right? So the investors will say, well, we thought it was risk-free. We thought it was risk-free. Well, they shouldn't have thought that. So it'd be good to talk to the financial planner and say, well, just what disclosure did you give to them? Well, I go, well, here's this document that says, this is not a government bond fault. This is subject to risk. This is, what could happen. And then, of course, talk to the regulator. They're often criticized by, well, why didn't you protect the investor ex ante? What action have you taken subsequent? Who has been prosecuted? All of these things. So, I think you can get a better, picture, of the complex understanding of what happened by, triangulating on the actors, the participants. And then finally, the researcher triangulation can be really important, right? You come up with, look through all the transcripts, and you come up with what you think are the list of themes, and another researcher comes up with it as well, and you triangulate and go back and come back and triangulate again. And the same applies for initial themes, intermediate themes, and final themes. So the memos are a very important part. You keep them, and that's your audit trail. So methods, you might start off asking a question one way and then go, well, that's not really working. It's not resonating with the participants. They're not getting what I mean. And then you have to redesign how you ask or the order. So you'd write all that down in your methods memo. Reflections, well, you might say, well, I'm getting, you know, an overwhelming theme here already. And you might write down, you know, what that, you know, theme is that you think. And then analytical, you know, you might have been doing deductive reasoning, right? All mammals are warm-blooded, humans are warm-blooded, hence they're mammals. Or inductive, you know, 1 + 2 is 3, 3 times 1 + 2, 3, 2 times 3 divided by 2 is 3. 1 + 2 + 3 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12 divided by 2 is 6. So maybe 1 + 2 + 3 + ... n equals n times n + 1 on 2. That's inductive, yeah, mathematical induction. So in fact, that's true. 1 + 2 plus all the way to n equals n times n + 1 on 2. So these memos, the finance capital market person would have terrible, you know, find it very testing. They had to record every variable they tried and discarded, trying to predict returns. They would look, you know, they would look very bad indeed. So sampling, the capital market people often say, well, you know, you only got a small sample and it's not a random sample. Yeah. Well, you know, purposeful sampling makes sense, right? Because if you're looking at a financial disaster, you don't want to go just to the, you know, the electoral roll and pick people randomly. Most of them won't be involved in the financial disaster. So, you know, it does make sense to look at investors, regulators, and financial planners. And of course, they do that in capital markets anyway. They do a study on takeovers or, you know, decisions to IPO, right? So they're purposeful samples as well. Samples are smaller? Well, of course, it's so hard to, you know, arrange the interview and conduct the interview. But you'll find, you know, as you get 30 and above, you start to get saturation on themes, right? The 40th interview is not adding many more themes or anything over and above the first 30 odd. So you think, you know, you talk to people all your life, right? And you think it'd be easy to do interviews, but it is not, right? I have a theory, that if your job matches your vocation, that you'll be a really happy person. And of course, in my case, my job does match my vocation, and I am a very happy person. But I had no idea how to interview people and get that. I would have to have leading questions. I'd have to hunt for the answers, but that's not allowed. Yeah. So they're two things that are, you know, especially not allowed. You know, asking yes/no questions, dichotomous, that's, you know, that doesn't have much value. And you've got to avoid questions with hidden meaning. And sort of words can have hidden meaning. If I asked you how much debt you're prepared to take on to fund your education, you might give me a different answer to if I asked you how much you're prepared to invest in your education. Invest is a very positive word, whereas debt is a very negative word. Yeah, so you think someone looking at it say, well, that's the same question, but you know, those of us that know means know that you're, you know, putting a negative spin on or a positive spin on. So here's the example of tying the research questions to the interview questions. So, and Farah here have listed their, you know, their research questions, and beside it, they've written down every single interview question they asked, right? So the editors love to see that you're just not asking questions for the sake of it, but you're tying the interview questions to the research questions. So that's a very important thing that they like to see in your write-up of your research. So the other thing is when you come up, you know, done your interviews and you come up with your themes, yeah, they like to see, the different iteration of analysis. What were the initial themes you come up with? How did you combine them to come up with the intermediate? And how did you come up with the final themes, right? And here, researcher triangulation can be really important and adds to the scientific credibility of the results, right? Two or more people came up with the same, final themes. So how to go about doing it? Well, if you're only ever going to do one qualitative study in your life, something known as scissors and sort would be fine. And that's where you just go through the transcripts and see the different themes, and you might make a pile of, the similar themes, and you can see which piles are larger, which are smaller. But if you're doing many qualitative studies, that might not be the best approach. You might be better to use qualitative data analysis software. So one that is used a lot is something called NVivo that was developed in Australia. I think it's into its nearly 20th edition. But it sort of just does the scissors and sort, but on a computer. So you don't have to worry about taking up a desk or things getting blown away if someone opens the window. But of course, people will come up with an AI version of qualitative data analysis. Something's been around for a couple of decades is UQ has something called, I'm trying to think what it is, Leximancer, Leximancer, and that purports to do, use big data to get your themes and stuff for you. Well, I'm sure there'll be a variant of that that's using the latest in AI, which will claim to come up with the different iterations from initial themes to final themes. Look out closely for that space. Or you yourself could feed the AI the different transcripts and ask it to come up with common themes. So here's an example from Anfara. They have the initial themes down the bottom and the intermediate themes in the middle and the final things up the top. I would do it the other way around because I tend to read from top to bottom. I'd have the initial themes at the top, then the second, then the intermediate, then the final. But that's just a personal preference. So finally, the editors like to see that you've tied your findings to the different sources. So here we got all the different findings and all the different sources: interviews, focus groups, observations, documents, methods memo, analytic memos, reflective. And you can see finding one, interviews, observations, and all of the memos. And finding three is interviews, observations, and documents, right? So some of the big three, right? So these two might be, regarded as the strongest of the findings. Now, it's not an F test, but, the editors like to see it, especially the capital market journal editors, because, matrices are something that they're familiar with, right? So they can sort of see the strength of your finding. Okay, this is a big topic, right? And this is, your theoretical orientation. And I already told you that the capital markets people think that there's only one version of reality. It's black and white, whereas, the police and the prosecutors know that people see different versions of reality, right? And as you go from left to right, right in the right is right inside is everyone sees a different reality, right? So this is important, right? And you should make known your theoretical orientation. But of course, it is literally true that the police hate when there's more than one witness, right, to a crime. It means their chances of getting a prosecution is less, and it's because of this theoretical orientation, whether there is one objective reality. And of course, there is not. People see different things, and they experience a different version of reality. So it's very important to state what your theoretical orientation is. And that's why, if you're studying something like a financial disaster, you get different viewpoints: the investors, the financial planners, and financial advisors and the regulators. So then I wrote, I was part of a group that wrote about that in relation to finance research. So we talked about Lintner. So in 1956, which is basically 70 years ago, he did interviews, or his research assistant did, with presidents, vice presidents, treasurers, etc., at the big companies, and how they set their dividend policies. And from that, he came up with a model of corporate dividend behavior. And actually, that's as regarded as highly today as it was 70 years ago. Lots of new journals in doing qualitative research in finance, and existing journals are starting to publish. In our own journal, Australian Journal of Management, there you see there's a financial crisis paper, how to choose fund managers, self-managed super funds. Lan did a study in Vietnam on tuna fishing, and of course the title gives it all away, My Boat, My Identity. And Neck didn't talk about breaking the glass ceiling for women, but when they do break the glass ceiling, a lot of them leave. So why do they leave? And that was very interesting. But as we can see by the forward, which I think you have a version of in the Dropbox, the top editors of Journal of Finance and President of the American Finance Association are saying that we should be doing qualitative research. The book that I wrote represents a line in the sand. So if you do research involving image subjects, then you need to have ethical approval. And in the course of this week, we're going to give you examples from Yale, Stanford, and Princeton where things went wrong. And that's sort of the reason that you do have to apply for human subject ethical approval. Now, because you're just doing business studies work or economics, it's going to be regarded as a low risk. It's not like you're giving someone a dangerous, untried medical or a medicine, or you're doing an untried operation. You're just asking a bunch of questions. So Milgram, Stanley Milgram wanted to look at obedience to authority. So the experiment was set up so the participant was a teacher. And the teacher was in a room with a console, and the other person in the room was a person dressed in a lab coat holding a clipboard, and they were part of the experiment. In an adjoining room was a student, and the student was part of the experiment. So the only real participant was the teacher. The teacher had to ask a series of questions of the student. And if the student got it wrong, the teacher had to push a button with, varying electronic shocks. So, invariably, after a few questions, the student would get it wrong and a shock would be administered and the student would scream. But of course, that was just fake. Didn't really get the shock. But eventually the student got so many questions wrong that the teacher was, had to push the button, but now it said danger, 450 volts, right? And we all know that 120 volts will kill you. So 450 will more than do the job. 2/3 of the teacher delivered that shot, the killing shot. Some of them turned to the guy in the lab coat and said, but this is going to kill them. But the guy in the lab coat would put his head up and said, it is necessary for the experiment. And they went ahead and pushed the button. So you can imagine how these people felt about themselves when they found afterwards that they had actually, their obedience to authority meant that they, had basically, been prepared to commit murder. So, obviously there should have been, if it had gone through ethics, there should have been counselors there to help them through their trauma, etc. Right? Now, an interesting thing about this, it's been replicated many times, of course, not with ethical approval, but for documentaries and so on. And the same result happens. 2/3 of the people will deliver the killing shot. This has been made into a major motion picture. So you can actually watch a movie about it. So where to from here? Here, Pratt talks about writing up qualitative research, and Farah, we've gone through a lot of the things that and Farah Brown and Manju have talked about. Silverman is an amazing academic. He's in his 90s, goes around the world teaching, helping people with qualitative research, particularly young researchers. Amazing man. Patton is one of my favorite books, not just because he cites my work, but because it's a very good book. Then you've got my book, which is here. There's normally going to be courses at most universities for qualitative research. So a new text you can find here. If I click on this, I don't know whether you'll see it. But again, the foreword written by the editors of Journal of Finance and past presidents of the American Finance Association. So, you know, obviously this topic, this methodology has been taken very seriously, and it's something that you should think about, including in your, you know, your tool bag of research methodologies. So any questions at this stage, because we might go to the hands-on part of the lecture if that's ready. Anyone got any questions in the comments, Martina?
No, we didn't have anything come through in the chat. It might just be like important to mention as well that in terms of, you know, the qualitative data sources that are available to you these days, you've actually got a really broad array of data that you can pull into qualitative research, right? So qualitative is really broadly around anything that's essentially not falling into the quantitative bracket. So for instance, we've had colleagues working with video and video transcripts, right? We've had colleagues working with data from, you know, essentially TV series transcripts. So, and that got published in a really good journal, in a tier 1 journal, right? So, really opens you up to just exploring a whole new range of data sources. And, you know, certainly anything that can be converted into textual data, that's definitely, you know, a possibility to convert that into qualitative information as well. So you're in a way not restricted just to interviewing, right, or to your observations, but you can actually bring in a whole range of different sources, which makes this thing really interesting to explore that for your research as well. Yeah, we just actually had a question come through. So yeah, feel free to just unmute yourself, or if you prefer, just put it in the chat. That's fine as
Yeah,
well.
if you're too shy, if you're just too shy, put it in the chat. Otherwise, ask the question.
I want to have a question.
Yep.
So when we doing the group interview, so some of the answer may be a fact because some people might refer the same answer to other previous answer. Like we doing a group of 5 and we answer in number 1, 2, 3. So the number 5 interviewer might be get on affected from previous answer. So how do we know
So,
that the answer is
so you're talking about are you talking about a focus group where you've got, say, 5 or 6 people in the room?
yes?
Yeah. Okay. So in a focus group, and I didn't cover this, this is a little more difficult than an interview, right? So it is a good idea not only to have a tape recording of the focus group, but also to have a video. And I know you've done enough group work, Li Hung, to know that certain individuals, yeah, can sort of take over the focus group, right, and lead the other participants in a certain way. So you've got you know, the group dynamics thing is very important, and this person can be quite influential in getting the other people, as you say, to answer the same thing. That's why you would do many iteration, many different focus groups, right? But it's very interesting how the group dynamics, how someone can, in some groups sort of take over and lead it all in the way that they're thinking and get the others to agree with them. So that's why you video that and take note of this observation and the interpersonal contacts, right? So there's a whole other literature on how to deal with focus groups. So that's a really good question. Okay, we've got Giles is asking a question.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. What are the implications if I come up with the questionnaire with a third party, but they do the interviewing?
So, yeah, so the purists would say that it wouldn't call it a questionnaire, right? So first of all, questionnaire would be a survey, right? So that quantitative. So let's call it, you come up with a list of interview questions, right? The purists would say, well, you're better to do it yourself, right? Because you've got to do that triangulation and you're the one doing the research, right? So if you're getting someone else to do it, you're missing something. Now, having said that, Littner, the famous early finance study, he had his research associate do it. And the research associate gave him copious notes. But I would criticize that on the basis that this is one time, you should do it yourself, right? As a researcher.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
Yep. But a survey, of course, can be administered by others, right? So it's not as personal. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, someone else had a question?
Hello, if there's none.
Now, who's asking a question there? Someone's went to ask a question.
Me.
Yeah, I think we had
Pia.
one more. I was going to say we had nothing else, and then that very moment.
Oh, sorry.
No problem at all. Please go ahead. Please
Okay,
go ahead.
thank you. So, because you said that because we have these triangulations, right? To observe and to come up with the the findings and everything.
Different views, different viewpoints.
Yep. Okay. So does it mean that when the editors check the work, is there any particular method, not a method, but the ways, for example, if you actually interview them in person, would that mean it looks better than if you do telephones or send them interview questions online or stuff like that?
No, I don't think so. In person is the best. I mean, you can do that now on Zoom if you can't get there in the coffee shop or wherever.
Okay.
Over the telephone, I guess you're not going to be able to do much observation over the telephone. It'll be more the documents, that the firm has on its website or what, any inquiries have told you about it. You interview Rio Tinto and, they've got a glowing ESG record, right? But then the next day they go out and blow up 45,000-year-old, indigenous, rock cave, right? With indigenous art, which is almost the most sacred thing on earth, and legally do it, and they don't give a damn about it, right? Well, that's the observations there, which might just come from not from government censure or anything, but from newspapers, show that they're not really very good corporate citizens or citizens at all, right? So but you would, by doing it over the telephone, miss the subtleties of their body language, and you miss, anything you observe going into the interview or coming out of it.
I think COVID has changed this a little bit for us as well, right? I think pre-COVID, there was a really strong preference, especially also, for the top tier journals to actually for researchers, to really have that presence with the interview subjects, right? So to really make sure that you're actually entering, that space that you are researching, to have a deeper understanding, right? Then throughout COVID, everyone doing that kind of research was essentially, just stopped immediately. No travel, no direct contact possible. So I have seen a lot more coming through with Zoom interviews recently, and it seems to have become more established, or alternative platforms, right? Teams, whatnot. So it does seem to have become more established as a result. And I think that's fine in many circumstances. If your research focuses on, a particular topic where it might actually be worthwhile to get a deeper understanding of people's surroundings, living circumstances, right? So for instance, if you are someone working with vulnerable communities and you need to understand, like you need to firsthand see how people are actually living, what challenges they're encountering, what the problems are, I would suggest still to make sure that you do have a good opportunity to have, at least someone on the ground helping you conduct this research, because I think otherwise there could be instances where you're simply too far removed from the research to really understand what's going on. But, in corporate settings, I would say, it doesn't really matter if you sit there in a coffee shop, in their office, in the meeting room, or on Zoom. I would say, okay, in most instances, it doesn't really matter, right? As long as you get that information. Some people find it a bit more difficult to sort of establish that rapport when you're online. But I think that comes down to preference. I mean, we just interviewed for one of our studies, and we did a lot of them on Zoom as well, just simply because the executives we needed access to, right, they were just, distributed all over. And yeah, it just makes it so hard to just travel to all these locations just for like half an hour of interview. It's a lot of time. It's, it obviously means a lot of carbon emissions because we are flying back and forth, and we decided, you know what, it's just not worth the effort. We can just completely do this online. There's nothing lost. So yeah, it just depends a little bit on the context, right? So for any type of study that does have that situational, requirement to understand the context a little bit better, I would definitely suggest to get involved there with people on the ground. What we sometimes do with studies is that we actually partner up with, like local entities or people who are locally to that particular environment, just to sort of make sure, that we are not just, coming in as researchers, imposing our views and, drawing back out. We really kind of want to have that rapport. So that might just be something worthwhile to consider in the research design as well. Yeah.
So the person that's graduating tomorrow at UQ that I'm going up for, his research was on degrowth, zero growth and degrowth, and he was able to talk to economists and politicians all over the world using Zoom, right? Something that wouldn't have been really possible or looked favorably upon prior to COVID, right? But now,
Yes,
perfectly acceptable. Yeah,
makes sense. Thank you so much.
Made a big difference for him and produced a great thesis. Any more questions? We'll have a bunch of time over the next days as well. And one of the benefits of doing a course like this is you get your initial information, but you should follow up, right? You've got follow up questions and thoughts. You just email me in the first instance, right? I'm very good at getting back to email. Make sure you say you're doing the course so I know that it's you. Because sometimes I get some crank emails. Should we go to the hands-on, Martina, do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, it's a good example, I think, to understand, especially how to work with the coding, because that always seems to be a little bit of an elusive sort of concept for a lot of people. I remember when I started out doing qualitative research, right? And then they asked me to analyze the interviews, right? And I was just sitting there and going like, okay, what am I meant to be doing here? How am I meant to be analyzed? Like, what's the whole idea here? What am I actually looking for? So for today's exercise, we've obviously not given you full interviews because we would probably still need a few more weeks to do this course. If we were going to read through full interview transcripts, but what we've got today is like a much smaller data set. So rather than the full interview, we've just given you like a few sentences here and there that have been extracted from interview transcripts. So hopefully a lot more manageable. And the idea is, for you to start working with this, and we'll introduce introduce that exercise in a moment, to better understand this actual process of trying to wrangle qualitative data, right? Just to kind of get a feel for, okay, if I'm confronted with interviews, if I'm confronted with this qualitative data set, what can I actually do with it, right? We've just had another question come through. Yep. Please feel free to ask.
Either ask or just type it in the comments. Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. I understand that a matrix table is an analytical tool. It's used to link research finding with resource with collected source.
Yeah.
So can it also serve as a research design tool? I'm asking the question because I would like to anticipate in advance which types of data might lead to with expected finding.
Yeah, so this is the matrix of findings tied to source that we talked about. So I would typically have those same sources. You may not have done focus groups. You may have just done interviews. So in which case you'd have interview, observation, documentation, and then just your methods, right? And you mightn't have maintained all of those methods, right? But you might have maintained the methods memo and also your reflection memo. So you mightn't have the ones about where you go from different logic, induction to deduction.
Yeah, thank you.
So most of them will be similar. Pleasure. So the purpose of this exercise is, number one, to give you a go at coming up with themes, right? But number two, because it's such a big class, we'll have a number of groups, right? And it's going to show the scientific process, right? How the triangulation actually makes the results, replicable and scientific. Because you'll be amazed at the degree of similarity of the findings, right, from the different groups. So now I'm going to share the screen for the exercise. And here we go. So essentially, we want you to come up with, I think it says top 5, but we're going to say top 3. And you'll find this document in the Dropbox, exercise 1. So these are responses from over 100 different school teachers about why they become school teachers. So you should have that in the Dropbox. So what we're going to do is we are going to form groups and get you to go through this and come up with the final. I guess you'll start with initial, intermediate, but what we want you to report back on is what are the final things here about what led people to become teachers. So we're going to do the group formation. We've got 46 people. So how many groups is that, Martina? That's say groups of 4.
That we might we can probably go with groups of 5, because otherwise I think we're going to get a very large number of groups here.
9 groups of 5.
Yeah, I think that might work, because otherwise we'll probably have a very so we do have a few people doing this for assessment.
So people doing it for assessment should be in groups 1 and 2. And the Kaberi people and others in the groups 3 onwards, okay? So people doing it for assessment who are not Kaberi in groups 1 and 2, and the Kaberi people are in groups 3 to 9, okay? And
yeah, okay. So I've set up 9 breakout rooms, 1 and 2, if you're doing this for assessment, and then other rooms for non-assessment. If you end up in the wrong room, then you can still do the assessment.
Kaberi people, the Kaberi people can be doing it for assessment too, but we want them in the 3 to 9. So that's all fine. Well, if you do the assessment, you'll get the certificate, right? So.
Sorry,
Okay,
Martina.
all right.
Just Martina, a reminder: the UTS people are we being assessed or not assessed?
You are, I think, formally enrolled in this subject, which means that I need to put a mark in for you. So yes, I would suggest do it for assessment, just so you know that we do have that information available. I mean, it's obviously not a very onerous task in terms of, you know, completing in particular here the participation. So I think just do it for assessment and then you have it on your record.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you want to do, you want to get comments on your research proposal. Then look, you can send your research proposal in as many times as you want, and I'll give you feedback, and you can redo it and then resubmit it.
Right, thank you.
We're not trying to be catching you out or anything. Okay, so Kaberi people 3 to 9, yeah. Other people 1 to 2. If you're not doing it for assessment, then you should be in 3 to 9. But the Kaberi people, some of them will be doing it for assessment, but 3 to 9. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I'm just setting this up. Just give me 1 second. Okay,
And
everything is labeled
you gotta
correctly.
self-allocate.
Okay. There we go. Hopefully it works. We'll see in a moment.
Hi, Tom. Sorry, I'm like 3 to 9, right? Pia.
Pia, you're in group 1 to 2.
Where am I? Oh, okay. Okay,
You're,
thanks.
You're
Thanks.
you're basically a UTS citizen.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, student.
Thanks.
Okay, now you got to self-assign. Sometimes it's difficult to find the button to join the groups, but you'll keep searching, you'll find it. And
Yeah, we're getting. We've
we
got the
can
first few rooms taken now.
Yeah, and we can pause the recording.
Yes, let's pause the recording.
There we go. There we go. Okay, excellent. So we're going to get the groups to present their findings. So we'll start with group 1. What you're doing here is just an informal presentation. So what you've got overnight to prepare like a more formal, nothing more than 1 page though, to send to Martina and me. Okay. So you get another go at this. This is just an informal presentation. So who is the spokesperson for group 1?
I would like to.
Yep.
If you.
So
okay.
Ivy, but you weren't there the whole time, Ivy.
Okay, fine.
But you can go. Are
That's
you happy to
okay.
have-
I mean,
Right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I can see the recording back and just focus on this exercise 1. I think it's okay.
Okay. Okay. So someone else from group 1?
Yeah, happy to.
Yep, please.
Yep.
Thanks, Charles. Yeah.
Yep. So, so question 1: did everyone member agree? Pretty much yes. On our top 3, did you want us to talk through those?
Yep. Tell us top 3.
Yep. So top 3: desire to make a difference, love for children, and influence of family or past teachers. The top question 2, top 5 categories were desire to make a difference, love for children, family influence, job practicality, and passion for subject area. Agreement amongst the members. Yes, there was a high level of agreement. There was some discussion, but yeah, there was a lot of agreement. And how did group members handle responses? It stated more than 1 factor. We did assign responses to different categories, but essentially we did utilize, shall we say, some technology tools to help us a little bit condense that down.
Sounds a bit like scissors and swords with some AI help.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
And then importantly, spent a lot of time coaching each other through our various PhD challenges and issues at the moment.
That's good. An emotional support group. Okay,
exactly.
Group 3. Thanks, Charles. Group 3.
We were Group 1, actually, Tom.
Yeah. No. So I'm asking for Group 3.
Yeah.
We're skipping Group 2. So Group 3 is a representative.
Group 2 didn't have any takers, just for those of you who were wondering what happened to Group 2. So since we had, yeah.
Everyone wants to be number 1.
Fu, you want to talk?
Group 3.
Oh no. Here we go. Group 3. Yeah.
Okay. So we have 2 members. So lady first.
Okay, I will give some views from Group 3. Can you hear me clearly?
Yep, we can hear you.
We have this and the 3 top.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Why,
you're breaking up.
Why the want to become a teacher? I think the first reason is because they love children. They love working
children.
with children. Yeah. The second reason is they are influenced from their role models like family, parents, or their past teachers.
Yeah.
And the third reason is the flexibility in time, like work-life balance.
Work-life balance. Yep. Okay. Excellent. That's perfect. Group 4. Need a representative from Group 4. You must have decided who was going to be the representative. Duke, you might have to help get a.
Thang, can we just get all right? So now Thang, which group are you, Thang? Can we join the group?
Group 3. I'm in Group 3.
You Group 3 as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So we need Group 4
already.
Okay.
If you're shy, just type the 3 things in the chat.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being shy. I used to be very shy.
Okay.
Now I'm not shy anymore.
Now we want group 3 done. Yeah. Group 4.
Group 4.
We can have
Bảo
An, Đào, Lan, or even Michelle Sui. Group 4.
You can just type it in the chat if you want.
Yeah. Everyone maybe type the chat in the chat and then start with your group number. 3 reasons why the participant want to be a teacher.
No, we'll do it one at a time. I'm not going to do everyone.
Oh, one at right? Okay.
We've got to get number 4 over the hurdle. It's like a horse that approaches a hurdle and knows it's supposed to jump but doesn't want to. Yeah. So we've got to speak very soothingly to you. Group 4, we'd love to hear your 3 reasons. Yeah. I'm sure it's going to really help us to understand things. Yeah.
Lang already answered for Group 4. Yeah.
Oh, we've got an answer? Okay, let's see. We've got the chat. Okay, so Group 4 is they're making an impact. Work life. Love the children. Yep. Okay, great. That's fantastic. Number 5, Group 5.
Yeah, we are Group 5, and now we are in discussing and agree. We just realize that love children, that's one category.
Yep.
The other things that we in discussing.
Yep. That's 1. What's 2 and 3? Or do you only come up with one?
Chung and Z, please put something more.
So was there did you only come up with one? You're asked to come up with
We just agreed on one.
only on one, okay. Group 6?
Yes. I can represent for group 6.
Okay, here we go. Love of teaching, yeah. Then we got work life. Influence, yeah. Yeah. Okay, group 7.
Yeah, I'm in group 7.
Yep.
Yeah, our group categorization is thus: number 1 is love children.
Yep.
Number 2, have children.
What's the second? What's the second?
Have children.
Help, yeah.
Yeah.
Impact, yeah. I'll say impact,
And
yeah.
next is sum up.
Sum
up.
yeah, a work-life balance, yeah, work-life.
And then the 4 is family tradition.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Group 8.
May I have my own answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am from group 7 and I want to supplement some of my
There's disagreement. There's disagreement in group 7. That's okay, go ahead.
Okay, we and Phước have just discussed, but maybe there's some difference in my answer. I have 6 categories, including helping children, loving kids, motivations, love, teaching, need employment, and the last one, ability to teach. And I code it by putting A, B, C, D, E, F next to the answer and group them together. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Group 8.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm group A, so our top 5 is the desire to make a difference.
Yep.
The enjoyment of working with children.
Yep.
Inspired by particular teacher or mentor.
Yep.
The family relative who were teacher.
Yep.
And finally, the love of teaching.
Yep. Fantastic. And just one more group. Group 9.
Group 9, we have 3 top reasons. The first is the desire to make the positive impact, influence of the teacher.
Yep.
The second is the love for the children.
Yep.
And the third is the personal and family's circumstance, the position.
So is that inspired by the family, or are we talking work-life balance?
5.
Oh, no, sorry, for number 3. Is that inspired by the family, or is that what you're saying, or are you talking about work-life balance?
No, the number 3 was our on inspirational role models like
okay, inspired. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the results are in, and this just shows you, number 1, you had that experience of collating all of these responses. And when you looked at it, you know, you might have thought, you know, that how do I start, right? But then you do some initial themes, and there might have been quite a few, and then you know, come up with intermediate and final. So it shows, you know, how to do coding, and it's, you know, it's harder than you'd think, right? So it's good that you had a go at doing it. And you can see it's best to do it with others. So the researcher triangulation. And we had 8 groups, and we had remarkably similar results. And that's why the editors look at triangulate. When you do the triangulation, it adds to the replicability and the scientific nature of what you're doing. So just about every group had the love with working with children, having an impact, you know, which is making a difference, and influence of someone. Yeah, so just about every group had those three things, which is quite remarkable. Out of the 100+ responses, just about all of the 8 groups came up with the same conclusion. Someone's asking a question, but there's some feedback.
No, I think we had a bit of feedback in the recording.
Anyway, that was very interesting. We'll in the survey part, you'll get to ask how do you ask survey questions to get at why people become teachers, right? So that's going to be harder than you think. Yeah, so there's quite a few ways to think about that. So when we do surveys on Wednesday, part of it, the hands-on will be how do you ask a question about that. Okay, sorry,
the
Martina.
next steps, I was just going to talk about, just sort of like what are sort of like the next steps now, what we would do with this type of analysis. All right, so like just assume you had actually done this big massive study, you had these interviews of 125 teachers, and now you wanted to move that towards publication, right? So then actually having a figure in your study that actually lists these motivations with some sample quotes and, shows the different categories would be a really great starting point. And from there, you could really then look into crafting a theoretical contribution around motivators for people and then draw on existing theory to justify, what is going on here. So you would look at in extrinsic motivation, for instance, intrinsic motivation. You see some of the categories that were really similar in terms of people wanting to make an impact, right? So you've also got that as a category where people are actually driven by things that are, not just necessarily monetary rewards for their job life. So you could really take that as a great starting point to record your findings and then to craft a theoretical contribution for a submission. So that's essentially the process that we would go through. We've done a very abbreviated version here, but that's in a more robust setting. That would be a way to analyze it and to think about the category.
We lost your sound, Martina.
Oh, sorry. Am I back?
I'm not sure what that is.
Am I back?
I think the information you're giving is too valuable. Donald Trump has cut it off.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, though? Am I back?
Back now. You're back now.
Yeah. Okay. Now I was just saying that we've done a very abbreviated version of the exercise today, but for longer interviews, we would obviously do it in a more robust way, but the process remains the same. Yeah.
So when you are giving the quotes around your themes, right, what editors want you to do is to apply the Goldilocks rule, right? So not too much, not too little, but just right. And so that the reader, editor, referee can sort of feel that where you're heading with the themes and how you got to your final themes. Yeah. So just enough to get so that they feel that they're part of the story. Yeah. But don't overdo it. Don't just have pages and pages and pages of quotes, right? Because no one really wants to see that. And what we can do is give you examples of papers that have done the qualitative, some ex-students for their thesis. And then, of course, the thesis paper can be quite a bit longer than the actual published paper. So you might see, if we could show the process of what the thesis paper was and what the published version was, you can sort of see what happens in the review process. Okay, we got any more questions? That was fantastic. Here we go. We've got a question here. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Tom, I have a question. Like this exercise is about coding to themes.
Yep.
In class, you or anyone can check we have grouped the codes correctly or not. But in actual research, how do we know if we have grouped the data accurately into the right themes?
Yeah, so what we've demonstrated here is that this triangulation within a group, leads to the same conclusion, right? So we did many different groups, but each group triangulated and each group came up with the same conclusion. So really, we only needed to do group 4, for example, right? All I had to do was get group 4 to present. They had impact, work-life balance, and love for children. And basically, we look at all the other groups, they had the same, right? So that's showing you that the triangulation you do in one group is scientific and replicable enough, right? That the editors have a lot of confidence in it. But if you just did the things yourself, that mightn't be as credible as if you did the researcher triangulation.
Yeah, the feedback process is very important, right? So people will rarely ever submit their first iteration of a qualitative paper to a journal. It would normally be presented, you know, to colleagues internally at a conference, maybe get additional feedback on that, make sure it's robust. And you can also seek feedback depending on the sensitivity of the data, of course, right, from your participants as well, and to run this past them to see that you've accurately reflected the understandings of the information that they've given you. So all of that can be used to make the findings more robust. Yeah.
And I guess it goes without saying, because you need to get ethical approval, that the participants remain anonymous, right? You don't do anything that would identify who the participants are. So.
Yeah. Unless you're working with, of course, you know, if you've got court proceedings that you are using that are publicly available, or Royal Commission interviews, right? That's why I said depending on the sensitivity of the data source. So if you've got publicly available textual data that you are using, sometimes that's identified, right? So if a politician goes on record with a statement, that's part of the public record, right? You don't need to anonymize their name because they've made that statement publicly in the media. So, you know, that is not something that you then need to start anonymizing to say politician 1 said the following. But of course, right, if you are interviewing people like informants within companies, anyone, you know, who needs to be treated as confidential, you need to be just, you know, making sure that you've got this utmost confidentiality in place. Also because you first of all, as a researcher, will get yourself into trouble if you don't stick with that. But also you will sort of, you know, lose your credibility as well. And people in the future wouldn't want to talk to you if they know that you are just, you know, leaking your data all over.
Okay, that's great. I think we've made a big dent in that. Make sure you go to Where to From Here and look at the resources that were provided for you. Any more questions before we finish up? It's just about 5.
So yeah, tomorrow we'll do the systematic literature reviews. Yeah, there's also information on the Dropbox folder. Make sure you have a look through that before you jump online. It's a lot of information. It's one of our most popular topics, how to do a systematic lit review. But you know, there's definitely a lot of information there already for you. So make sure you just go through that material before jumping online. And then I'll see you tomorrow at the same time. You've got the Zoom links. So it'll be the same Zoom link for tomorrow. Yeah, and any question in the meantime, feel free to email us. We can also get back to you via email.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Martina. I'll be playing hooky tomorrow because I'm going to the graduation, but I'll see you Wednesday and Thursday.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Martina.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.